Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I'm your host. And today's episode is the 21st of the Instagram Live Q&As that we've done. Coming out this week is a fellow who's asked the first question, which is Brady from Boutique Timeless Landscaping in WA. Most enjoyable chat that I've had in the 118, I think, episodes or 16. Just a fun fella to chat to. But his question was, what's the best accounting software time saver that you have? I don't use the accounting software as much as I should, and certainly not as much as a lot of other people do. Like I know they use Xero projects and all sorts of things within Xero, and I use QuickBooks for my accounting, and they're all pretty much the same. Like they do automate a lot of things, but not a lot of things that I use it for. Like I don't use it for quoting or invoicing. Still very old school in that regard. But there is one thing that I do. So there's obviously syncing the transactions to the account makes it quicker. And there was something I was going to mention, which I've forgotten already. So off to a flyer today. What is it? No, can't think of it. If I think of it, I'll come back to it. But obviously, I don't use a lot of things for my accounting program. But one benefit of being on QuickBooks is you can use Synced Up, which was a pretty good project management software, and also does all sorts of things. It's quite expensive, but I think for the right size company, it's probably the best option out of all those apps that people use, because it's a lot of different apps combined into one. But if I think of that best accounting software time saver that I use, I'll go back to it. I'm just trying to think of it now. No idea. Dan Foreman said, is any publicity good publicity? So Dan may or may not be building a garden on the block this year. That could be what his question is regarding. I certainly don't believe any publicity is good publicity, but that's not a reference to the block. I think, I don't think the probably worst thing that could happen on the block is going to be a bad thing for your business, because as big as the show is, not a lot of people watch it in the grand scheme of things. And not a lot of people care about it either. Like they realize it's a TV show. So, certainly from experience of other people who have been on there, I don't think you can go wrong going on there. The only thing you got to weigh up is the cost of it. But in public life, like normal situations, there's definitely bad things that wouldn't be good for the business. So I'm not someone who believes that any publicity is good publicity. Living Landscapes DC said, how did you start getting into the design side of the business? Did you find it hard to be on site and spending time on designs in the beginning? It's a good question, because I'm still in the early days of moving into the design side of things. And I'm not doing a lot of designs at the moment. Luckily, I've got Emma who's doing most of our designs, and I have very little input into what goes in them. But as I've mentioned a few times, that she does an awesome job, so I don't need to do it. Like I go to every consultation, and we might have a little chat, and then when she submits a design, I might have some really small tweaks. But yeah, overall, she's doing it. So, but I'm looking to do more going forward. But the question you ask about how do you do it, and do you find it hard doing both in terms of design and construction, is I do find it hard doing both, because I'm wanting to get the construction side of things done and get jobs, get them flowing and getting work done, so I can get invoices and keep the cash flow all ticking along. So I'm doing more construction than design, and that's just something I see for the next few months, and then I can slowly start to work that in. So the goal would be to have at least one day. Like I'll start doing 1 day of design a week, and then just see what works from there. Might want to make it 2, or one might be too much, or I can just change it to what works. But the key would be to make a regular amount of work. I put a regular amount of work into design or into construction, so that you're doing something consistently. So that could be every Tuesday I'll do design, or whatever day. You just pick a day and then work on that day. Just like making an appointment with a client, just put it in your diary, and then that's what you're going to do. Labyrinth Landscapes said, when are you going to interview Andy from Forge Landscapes? I don't know whether someone had mentioned him, because I reckon I've had that name in my notes section to contact him. So I'll probably do that tomorrow. I'm going to be sending out a lot of messages tomorrow. So I'll add him to the list if he's not already on there. I've got way too many things in my notes app, so it's almost pointless putting things in there because I never end up doing them anyway. Bowler Strange said, what's your go-to process for laying porcelain pavers on a concrete slab? So I've only done porcelain pavers once, I reckon. They're extremely hard to cut. I know that much about them, even though I only used them once, but it's a really hard product. Like, so 20 mil porcelain pavers. They're pretty cool because they've got so much variation in the way they look like, because they're made to look like natural stone, but they're not, and they're not just the same pattern repeated to look like natural stone. So the technology is really good on how they get made, and they've got a lot. They're slip resistant, and there's a lot of benefits about them compared to using natural stone. So you don't have to treat them or clean them as much. Just don't have to seal them. Don't have to put hardeners in them around pools. So there's a lot of benefits to them. They're a bit more expensive, but that probably can get saved on those other things that you don't have to do with them compared to natural stone. So the cost is probably similar long term. In terms of the process we used, it was just the same as if we're doing normal paving. So we did the slab and then just laid them on a mortar bed. If we were better at doing perfect slabs but under the paving, we'd just tile them. There's no reason they're porcelain, so you can certainly tile them, and they're all consistent. They're all calibrated to 20 mil. So I would just, if you can get the slab good enough, I would tile it. But if not, using mortar was fine for us, and we didn't have any issues with it. You'd want to check with the manufacturer to see whether that's, part of their recommended guidelines, because if something goes wrong with them, you're better off doing it the way that they specify to say how to do it. And then you're covered. But yeah, it was just a matter of laying. We didn't treat them any different to normal paving. Tom Lynch said, when you miss out on a job you quoted, do you question yourself and the price you've put in and get disappointed about it? So we probably might be too cheap, because I think we get, I reckon, 70% at a guess on the jobs that we quote. But that's not just price related. That's also who we're quoting for. So a lot of them are for designers, and we're not necessarily quoting against anyone else. Working for builders, the same deal. We're not quoting against anyone else. So that's obviously going to increase the strike rate. But the jobs that we don't get, I've never been too bothered by, because we've always got more work coming in. So just extremely lucky with that. But it hasn't always been that way. But even when it wasn't, I was still never concerned about not getting jobs. Probably because, I suppose the ones that do get annoying are when you're going back and forth on the quote. So you'll submit your quote, you go out and see them, submit your quote. They say, yep, we like it, but we just want to change this and this, and they go back and forth. And then all of a sudden they start ghosting you, or just saying they're not going ahead. But those ones can get a bit annoying. But overall, I'm certainly never disappointed about it. There's times when there's like a really exciting job for a cool design that someone's done. So working for a cool designer, and if you miss out on those, they can be a bit disappointing. But like I said, we're working for some of the best designers in the world. So if we do miss out on those ones, there's another one coming in. So yeah, just insanely lucky with who we've been able to work for. But yeah, I've never been too disappointed or thought much about the ones that we don't win. It's not a bad idea to possibly contact them if you're wanting to find out why you're missing out on jobs, but you're never going to win every job, so you've got to expect that you're not going to, and you're better off concentrating on things that you like concentrate on the clients who have gone with you and do the best you can for those ones rather than the ones who didn't go with you, and whether that's because they didn't see the value that provided or whatever the reason is. Sign from the Planet Space said, "Who's the client for the build at the new home, you or your wife?" Definitely me. My wife couldn't care too much about what's going on outside, so and that does make it easier. But in saying that, we're also this is actually has come up with some ideas. We've got some crazy paving going on in the back, and I wouldn't put crazy paving in my own house, but that's what we'll be doing. So we're probably both the client. Some things I pick and some things she picks. Aaron Holman, Landscape Design, said, "Are you a shorts all year round guy, or do the pants get a run in winter?" I did a reel just today, and you'd see I was wearing pants in that. So we've had a cracker start to winter this year. It was a couple of beautiful days last week, the first couple of days of winter. Just absolute heaven. So I was in shorts then. It'll be pants tomorrow, I think, because I might be. I don't know what I'm doing tomorrow, but pants will come out because it's a bit fresh. But I used to be shorts all year round and never had a problem with it. Never really got that cold. And I think the older I get, the more I'm getting with feeling in my legs. So pants came in last year for the first time, and they're coming back. Steve Nyland said, "With people leaning to conservation and more sustainable gardens, do you think you'll put more of those practices into your projects as well?" Yeah, I think it's something that just happens naturally. Pardon the pun, but just the older you get, the wiser you get, and you sort of realize that there are limits to what materials you can use. Like there's not a lot of materials have a infinite amount that you can access. So so I reckon it's something that has started to come into our designs, but it's not something that we're going to be going hardcore towards and just doing sustainable designs or natural designs. I'm still going to do the ones that the client wants and the things that I like, but it's definitely something that the more mature you get, the more you start to think about those type of things. Ultimate Retaining Wall said, "How do you navigate doing small jobs for family and friends?" The way I do that is by not doing small jobs for family and friends. I did it in the past, but then, everyone always talks about how they're the worst job to do. You always, there's an issue, and it's always awkward for both parties. But I just simply don't have the time. Any spare time I do have, I don't want to be doing a job for free for someone. Every now and then, in a moment of weakness, I'll do something, but I'd have to get paid the normal amount that I'll charge anyone else if I'm gonna do that, because I'm either not spending time with my family or I'm not spending time working for someone else. So there may be a time when I wind things back where I might be able to do that, but then I'll probably want it, not able to or wanting to do that. But you just got to say no to people. Like, because if you're going to do a job that's you're going to do a cheap price for, it's costing you money. So if that's what you want to do, you can. That's good. There's people who like that, but I just don't have the time. I barely get enough time to see my own wife and kids, let alone going to do things for other people. So I navigate that by saying no. And a lot of people, and now, like most people, my family and friends don't even ask because they know that I won't do it. And you could think of that as a bad thing, but it gives me more free time. Beyond Landscape said, "What are your thoughts on composite decking in comparison to timber?" Much like the just going blank again. What was he talking about before? No, going blank. But what I think I'm talking about getting old, getting Alzheimer's. We only used it once. Porcelain pavers, that's what I was talking about. That's what was on the tip of my tongue. Much like the porcelain pavers, we haven't used it that much in composite decking, so I'm certainly not someone who's qualified to compare the two. But I haven't had a problem with when we used the composite decking. I don't like it, but it certainly serves a purpose. And again, it's low maintenance. It's got its benefits. More expensive for those reasons. Again, you're not having to oil it or maintain it. But yeah, I heard someone talk about, they went to a sustainability expo and they were talking about how people are moving away from composite decking. I think it was because timber is a natural product, and the composite deckings were manufactured. So the timber, if you're using sustainable plantations, it's a better option using timber decking than the composite decking. That's, I obviously wasn't there, so there's probably a bit more detail than they went into than that. But yeah, I'd prefer timber. If I was going to do a deck myself for my own house, I would do timber, but I won't do one because I don't like having to maintain it. And there's just more benefits to using paving. I think paving is a lot cheaper as well than using decking. And there's a lot more options you can go with. So yeah, I would use paving over timber or composite. We just done a deck in Ocean Grove using 135mm by 35 or 32mm spotted gum. That's a really nice deck, and there's some nice timber, nice chunky timber. But yeah, I don't like the length of the composite decking either. But yeah, much prefer real timber. Paul Pritchard Landscape said no to Mifkas 24. That is a hard no. I was listening back to the podcast I did with Clint Adams on the full landscape, and in that one, I think I said this a couple of weeks ago, but in that I said I was saying in that how I was struggling for $1, and that was before Mifkas the year before, and then next thing you know, I was doing it the year after, even though I had no money. So that certainly hasn't changed things for the better by doing that. So I'll be there doing something, but not my own garden. I think there's a question about it. Yeah, there's a question about it. This coincidentally is the very next one. From Andrea Urin saying, did the garden show raise your profile? Has your work increased since? So I reckon it might have raised the profile because there were people talking to me during the build, giving me advice and saying how exciting it is to be doing my first show garden. And it's the 8th garden that we've built in 6 years there. So still a bit of work on the profile to do there. But there's always going to be someone who doesn't know who you are. There's a lot of people in the industry. And what was the other part of it? Has the work increased since? No, I don't think the work has changed. Like I don't ask people where they get our details from, so I don't know whether there's been an impact on that, whether anyone has mentioned it or would have mentioned it if I asked. But that's also not the reason I went into doing it. So I think if you went into it to try and get work out of it, you'd be doing different things to what I'm doing about it. So yeah, you'd spend a lot more time marketing yourself and promoting it and following up things and then asking people where they got your details from so you can work out if it worked for you. But I just did it to tick a bucket list off and did that and absolutely loved it. But yeah, and in terms of raising the profile, it's hard to say. It's also it's a long-term thing, whether that's raising the profile or getting work from it. It's only been 2 months, I think, since we finished up there. So it's going to be, you need to say at least 12 months and before you could actually say whether it was worthwhile for raising your profile or whether the work is increased, because people aren't necessarily ready to purchase straight away. So yeah, could ask that question again it'll be the Instagram live 70. Ask it then, because that'll be 12 months from now. Fair chance I won't be doing this every week until then, but you never know. But yeah, I reckon revisiting this question in 12 months would be more beneficial to know how worthwhile doing the garden show is. And it's also you're also better off doing it if you're wanting to do it to raise your profile and get more work. You don't just want to do it for 1 year; you want to do it multiple years. So that's not so that because if you're doing it in 1 year, people might see out, but there's a lot of people they're seeing. So because there was 9 or 10 large show gardens, and there's a boutique gardens, then there's the achievable gardens. So there's a lot of people all building gardens there. But if you're doing it multiple years, like 2 or 3 years in a row, then people are going to see you more there. So that's the best way to do that. But yeah, Andrew said, yep, test and measure your inquiries. Yeah, so that's again because we got so much work coming in, and it's from a good quality, like in terms of designers. I'm not that bothered by where the work comes from. I could start doing that for the designs possibly, to see where our design work is coming from, so that I can either maximize, like step up the amount of work goes into getting those type of inquiries. But at the moment, just busy actually getting the actual jobs done, rather than worrying about where it's coming from. And that could be something that you look back on in 6 months when you've got no work and say, I should have thought about it then. But at the moment, we'll keep ticking along as is. Was the Littlewood said, what are the benefits of hiring machines rather than buying? So Wazza works at the local hire yard that we use, Kerr's Hire. And I don't own any machines. I've got a truck, but no excavators or mini skid steers. And the reason for that is because, like, when I'm hiring it, I'll allow for it in a quote, so the client's paying for it, so I'm not paying for it. That's the same if you own a vehicle, because it's a machine, because it should be working into your overheads. So every hour that everyone's working is paying off that machine. And so regardless of whether you own or hire one, the client should be paying for it. But the benefits out of it is that you don't have to maintain it. We're lucky we don't have to clean ours. So you use it, you fill up with fuel, take it back, and then that's it. So if you own one, you'd certainly use it more than if you didn't. But like, we've had ones break down, so we call them up and they send out their tech to fix it. Or if they can't fix it, they'll bring out another machine and swap it over. So that certainly wouldn't happen if you own a machine. You have to get yours fixed somehow, like take it somewhere or get them to come out and pick it up. And then if you need the machine, you're going to have to go and hire one anyway. So yeah, so I am someone who doesn't own machines. So I think it'd be different if I did own machines. I'd be talking about the benefits of owning them. So it might be worth talking to someone who does own them to find out the benefits of doing that. So I'll do that next time. So I've got Brady's on tomorrow. I didn't ask him about that. But yeah, I'll keep that in mind for future guests. Landscaping with Dylan, so one of the best Instagram accounts going around, said, how old do you think you'll be when you set your last stone? Good question, because if you had asked, because I remember going to our workmate's 40th birthday, would have been 13 years ago. That when I was an employee with InStyle. It was one of the other InStyle fellas, and he turned 40. And I remember thinking, there's no way I could still be landscaping when I'm 40. Just not a chance. And it turns out, yeah, I am. That's what I'm doing right now. So, and he's 53 now, and he's still going. So, couldn't say. I'll be doing it as long as I possibly can, because I love the construction side of things. I'm starting to do a lot more concrete, like architectural concrete as well, which I'm loving that. And that's a little bit easier on the body. So there's a lot more time involved in that, in terms of setting the formwork up. And yeah, I'll probably, rather than just stopping cold turkey, I'd probably just start working smarter and doing things that are a lot easier to do. In saying that, I've quoted a job with 550 square meters of paving, which I'm excited to do, but my back won't be excited for that. But yeah, looking to do more concreting and things like that, like architectural concreting. So not screeding concreting, but just things that you can make a lot more money on, and don't have to work as physically hard. But also starting to do the design side of things. So it might, so yeah, don't know if I'm, say, doing 3 days construction, 2 days design a week. I don't know whether that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing, because it might be easier to keep doing the construction. So, when you stop doing something and then start again, maybe a bit harder to get into it. So that's something we'll just work with as we go. But yeah, hopefully at least another 5 years at the very least. But also don't want to keep doing it until I can't do it. I'd rather stop, before my body tells me I have to stop. And last question is from Cam at Abcam Horticulture. What's the best piece of advice you've heard from your podcast guests? So couldn't think of one. Which is a horrible answer to give, considering I had this question written down an hour ago. But yeah, I don't. Like, I listened back to the podcasts, but can't think of any pieces of advice I give. Like, I can think of good episodes, like the 2 that spring to mind. One with Tim Davies was a cracking episode. Emmeline Bowman was one of the best ones as well, in terms of the way she answered the questions, where she was talking to the audience as well as talking to me. Dean Herald as well. He gave some good advice about I think it's a 9-minute rule, or might even be less than 9 minutes, but he'll like leave a consultation, like he'll know if they're not going to be worthwhile, so he'll leave the consultation early if he knows it's not going to be a good project to have. And Ian Barker was an awesome episode as well. So I remember the awesome episodes, but I don't really remember a single piece of advice. So yeah, can't answer it that way, but there's been some cracking episodes. And a good segue to that is this week's episode with Brady Skevington from Boutique Timeless Landscaping. He just seems like an awesome fella. And he's also got some great advice in there as well, and some good ways that he does things, and the reasons why he does certain things. So that's definitely a good episode to listen to, and you'll love him after listening to it as well. So that's this week. And thank you very much to everyone who submitted a question for the podcast. And we'll do the same thing again next week. And we'll see you then.